Hey, this is Urbina, and tune into the relay for the latest news in boxing all around the world. Thank you for supporting myself and other female boxers. We truly appreciate it.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official. Sulem Urbina will be returning to action at least one more time before this year's out next week in New York City on Wednesday.
At the Sony Hall in Times Square, an evening of professional boxing on Broadway.
This is a Boxing Insider Promotions card, Boxing Insider. They appear to be staging their own shows these days. And Sulem Urbina,
she's going to be opposite the ring veteran journeywoman India Smith.
in what is a keep busy kind of fight. Sulem Urbina, friend of the channel, Sulem Urbina, who sports a professional record of 13 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw with 2 knockouts. One of those losses was the loss to Naoko Fujioka. I personally felt Sulem Urbina got a raw deal in that fight, being the house fighter.
The fight was close. You could have swung at the Sulem.
Maybe I am a little bit partial. Maybe I am a little bit biased. But what the fuck are you gonna do about it?
You want to dance, asshole?
I felt the fight was close enough that you could have gave it to Sulem, but they gave it to Naoko Fujioka instead, who went on to lose her WBA title to Marlena Esparza.
And that was approximately 2 fights ago.
2 fights later, Sulem Urbina has not boxed under the Golden Boy Promotions banner. The Tania Hernandez fight, the Josep Vizcaíno fight, and this upcoming fight with India Smith. None of these shows are Golden Boy Promotions shows. None of these cards are Golden Boy Promotions cards, which leads me to believe that the relationship is over.
I don't think she's under contract with Golden Boy Promotions anymore, because if she were, she wouldn't be able to box on this show.
Opposite the ring, India Smith, who's already seen action 6 times. You heard that right. She's already seen action 6 times this year alone.
3 for 3 in the last 6. She lost a decision, a split decision to Fatima Dudieva, a unanimous decision to Amy Salinas, and more recently, in her very last fight, she lost a decision to unbeaten Makia Craps.
Of Niagara Falls, one of Ring IQ's top prospects to watch. I believe that was in the year of 2020, 2021, somewhere around there. That was an 8-rounder. So is this one.
This upcoming fight with Sulem Urbina.
The very illustrious Sulem Urbina, who announced earlier last week that she would officially be joining OnlyFans.
Not dissimilar from what we've seen when it comes to other pugilists, anyone from Ebony Bridges to Andy Ruiz.
He's pretty fucking foxy.
An inside look into the boxers' lives, exclusive footage not otherwise available on the fighters' other social media accounts.
And perhaps a bit of eye candy for those of you that are curious. You know where to go.
But now she's going to be boxing India Smith next week in what is being billed as a super flyweight contest in the super flyweight division, an 8-rounder.
And at minimum, I feel that Sulem Urbina should be able to win a points decision. The registered promoter for the show is Larry Goldberg of Boxing Insider Promotions.
They're not just into boxing news, they actually stage boxing matches. At least one familiar face, one other familiar fighter set to make an appearance on this card, Anthony Sims.
Former Matchroom alum Anthony Sims, who has since departed ways with the promotional outfit after having suffered his first professional loss to Romer Angulio.
Anthony Sims is a good fighter, one of the better fighters that are around these weights. It's a shame that Matchroom dropped him.
But he's not the only one. Anthony Sims, Lerone Richards, these were unbeaten up-and-comers that Matchroom had some investment in, but for one reason or another, they decided to go in different directions. The fighters and the promotional outfit. Anthony's supposed to be fighting on the same show. He's a West Coast guy. Chuck Taylor's Dickies.
DJ Quick, Nestle Quick, you know the drill.
West Coast.
And what is being billed as a middleweight contest, it appears that young Anthony has made his way south of super middleweight down to middleweight.
They could use some fresh faces down there, believe you me.
That's a division that needs a shot in the arm. So does the women's super flyweight division, where this fight between Sulem Urbina and India Smith is set to take place. India Smith,
she's scrappy. She can be a handful mid-range to inside, as we saw in the Fatima Dudieva fight. She had Fatima Dudieva, who's otherwise an aggressive come-forward fighter. She had Fatima a bit flustered with her own activity.
It was hard for Fatima Dudieva to stay in character. Will it be hard for Sulem Urbina? Well, I happen to think that Sulem Urbina is good enough that at minimum she can win a points decision opposite the ring India Smith, and that's what I expect to see next week on the 21st. Keep your eyes peeled for that.
Bottom line is, contracts go from X time to X time. That's it. Any alteration that's going to happen, they need to get verification for me. I am the boxer, the one that's going in the ring, taking the risk, taking the punches. By law and just morally, if you're going to extend or do anything, you come to me and you say, oh, this is that, and sign something outside of your contract. You don't just say it amongst yourselves and bring it up 18, 20 months later. Like, the only time that ever came up was when it was time to ask me for money, and when they wanted me to box for the same amount with them and not take a new deal. It's, oh, actually, you've actually got another fight because COVID happened and you didn't box Glowacki at the time you were meant to box him. And
WBO Cruiserweight champion Lawrence Okolie provided a bit more clarity as to what exactly is going on between him and Matchroom, who he's so trying to part ways with. And what he's basically saying is that Matchroom is choosing to extend the life of his existing contract on the premise that the Jazuski fight that he had during the pandemic, on the premise that that fight was not part of his initial deal and that he still owes them a fight.
That's his side of the story. That's what he's saying.
In so many words, what he's saying is that, you know, if they're not happy with him and they're not happy with the investment that they've made in him, they should simply let him go. And I happen to agree with that sentiment. The relationship between Lawrence and Matchroom, it's already strained. There are hard feelings there. And it doesn't make sense for Matchroom to...
Even if Matchroom is right and Lawrence does owe them one more fight, do you really want to spend more resources, more money promoting this guy's fights when you know he's just going to leave?
He's going to leave anyway, because the story is the people over there at Boxer, Ben Shalom and those guys, they've offered him a better deal for a greater cash value.
More money than he's making with you guys, and if you guys don't want to match it, just cut him loose.
If only it were that simple. Lawrence Okolie also claimed that Eddie Hearn wanted $500,000 from him. $500,000. 500 large.
To that, Eddie Hearn was quoted as saying, a lot of what Lawrence said is not correct. We never asked him for 500,000 pounds.
He has a fight left. He claims the extra fight was not signed off by his team and not him, but he accepted all the terms and never mentioned it after.
If there was a miscommunication between Lawrence and his handlers, Lawrence and his management, and they signed off on that Jazuski fight as not being part of his Matchroom deal,
if somebody on his side signed off on that and there was a miscommunication between them, that's really not Matchroom's problem. And what that essentially means is you are still under contract with them, irrespective of your own miscommunication with your own team.
But that's if it's the way that Eddie Hearn says it is, that someone on Lawrence's side signed off on that Jazuski fight.
Somebody agreed that that Jazuski fight is not part of his existing Matchroom deal.
From where I'm sitting, it all means the same thing. Even if Lawrence does owe you one more fight, do you really want to have to promote it?
You want to pour more of your time and more of your dollars into this guy's career just so that he can leave you right afterwards for Ben Shalom and Boxer? Or
Lawrence said Eddie Hearn wanted 500,000 pounds from him, 500,000 large. Could that 500,000 represent the value of his contract and buying it out?
It might. The problem is that Eddie says he never asked Lawrence Okolie for 500,000 large.
Lawrence said is not correct. We never asked him for £500,000. Someone interfered with that contract, offered him more money, and he wanted to take the money rather than honour the deal. It's just about what's right and wrong. But it doesn't, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose bundles of sleep over it. We've done a tremendous job for Lawrence Okolie, and the interfering party, of course, will be dealt with.
He said that, though, he came to you when that offer came in from Sky and said that, I don't even want you to match it, just come close and I'll stick with Matchroom, I'm happy with Matchroom. So how comes that offer wasn't made from yourself?
Because the offer, which I've seen to be the face of Sky Sports Boxing, was, in my opinion, not a representation of the right value for Lawrence Okolie. You are quite right. Sky interfered with his contract. Sky offered him a deal while he was under contract. And they come to us and they said, here is, I saw the document, the face of Sky, we've had this conversation plenty of times, the face of Sky Sports Boxing, here's the money, this is the money I've been offered, what do you think? And I said, no, we won't be getting near that number, but you have a fight left. And okay, the legal representative that is assigned within his agreement signed off on everything, okay? And Lawrence Okolie knew everything about it.
Where Eddie Hearn says that they never asked Lawrence for 500,000 large, they may not have.
But Lawrence may have asked them, how much would it cost him to buy out his contract? This one fight that he owes them.
And that's just me. That's just me brainstorming. That's just me bouncing ideas around, trying to figure out where did that figure come from? 500,000 large. You're saying Eddie asked you for that.
What, did you ask him how much would it cost you to buy out your contract?
And when you did, that's the figure that he gave you. 500,000 large.
You heard what Eddie Hearn said. As far as he's concerned, based on everything he knows, Lawrence Okoli still owes them a fight, and he's still under contract. Thus, Eddie doesn't have to ask him for 500,000 large. Now, if you want to get out of this one fight, and you want to get out of this contract, that's what it's going to run you.
At least that's what I think the breakdown is.
A return on the investment that Matchroom has already made. A return on the investment they've made in Lawrence Okoli. I don't think Eddie Hearn outright asked him for 500,000 large.
I think at some point in the conversation, buying out the contract and buying his way out of that existing deal, I think at some point that came up, and that's the figure he was given. So what he can then do is go to Ben Shalom and go to Boxer and see if they can't buy him out of that contract.
If the cash value of what Sky Sports and Boxer are offering Lawrence Okoli is that much greater than what he was already making at Matchroom, then just use some of that money to buy your way out of this Matchroom deal.
Underneath it all, that's what I think is going on.
$500,000 is still $500,000, though.
Some bit of this is spite. Some bit of this is hard feelings. Some bit of it on both sides, you know? I felt that Lawrence Okoli mishandled the situation, and he should have chose a more amicable way of going about things.
Lawrence is the one that started up with all the cryptic talk about narcissism, egos, and Django references.
People knew who you were talking about, and they knew who you were bad-mouthing. They knew what you were implying, and you were doing this at a time where it wasn't quite clear to you if you were a network and promotional free agent or not.
But if you were, at least by now, you would have been able to jump right into that Sky Sports and Boxer deal, but you didn't, did you?
You didn't, because you're not completely sure you're at liberty to accept that offer from Sky Sports and Boxer.
If Ben Shalom, Sky Sports and Boxer want you so bad, while you still owe Matchroom a fight, all they've got to do is buy your contract out, if they want you that bad.
Because Matchroom's already invested money in you. Boxer hasn't.
Matchroom got you to the WBO title, not Ben Shalom.
And that's the way it is.
Correct me if I'm wrong in what I'm about to say. So one of these fights that you've had, and I think this was the fight that you had in lockdown, which was meant to be your fight against Glowacki, but that didn't materialise. That fight that you had instead of that was deemed as a separate fight to your deal. Can you just, am I accurate in what I'm saying from Matchroom's side? Is that what an issue is?
I mean that's the basis of it all, and that's very what's the word? Very accurate in terms of their side. But the bottom line of that one is, if that's the case, which even if I gave it to them, contracts go for a period of time and a period of fights. That extra fight that they call it was never explained to me, or I never signed it ever. It was never brought to my attention until when my contract came to an end. That's when we negotiated for a couple of months. So bear in mind, my contract ended in May. We negotiated for 2 months after that, when everyone accepted the contract was over. And as soon as we couldn't get anywhere, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go and get other deals, this fight, they just sort of started trying to find loopholes and everything. Oh, well, actually, you had a fight in 2020, 18, 19, 20 months ago, and it didn't count, so you have an extra fight. So they're saying that point, and until I go and actually get paid legal advice that say, can you look at my contract? Because if I have one, okay, cool. My former management looked at it, they said no more fight. Lawyers, no more fight. And now we get to this point here, and it transpires that there is no more fight. But it's a narrative that's been spun, and I've also been told you can't talk about it. So it's like the narrative's going, but it's just not true.
They come to us and they said, I saw the document, the face of Sky. We've had this conversation plenty of times. The face of Sky Sports Boxing. Here's the money. This is the money I've been offered. What do you think? And I said, no, we won't be getting near that number, but you have a fight left. And okay, the legal representative that is assigned within his agreement signed off on everything. Okay. And Lawrence Okoli knew everything about it.
Lawrence said that he didn't know. Eddie says that he did.
All the while, Lawrence Okoli is under orders to satisfy his next mandatory challenger, David Light, Australian-based fighter who's with No Limit Promotions, as the WBO grants 1 week.
In light of everything that's been going on, the WBO has granted them a 1-week extension to reach terms for a deal, or it's going to a purse bid.
There is a feeling that Ben Shalom and the people at Boxer may so choose to bid on Lawrence Okoli's fight.
I don't imagine that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom are in any hurry to spend more money promoting Lawrence Okoli. I don't imagine it's their intention to win the rights to this fight if it does go to a purse bid. So I don't know, maybe Ben Shalom and Boxer end up with the rights to the fight, or maybe No Limit.
David Light's promotional outfit, at which point Lawrence Okoli's going to have to pack his bags and travel to Australia as a defending champion.
A traveling one, though, as stated, I just don't get the sense that Matchroom wants to spend any more of their money and pool any more resources in promoting Lawrence Okoli's next fight, when that may be the last fight of his existing contract. Given the rift between them, they might let somebody else foot the bill for that thing.
They might.
Bid the minimum acceptable bid for the match, which I think is somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000.
That is the minimum acceptable bid for the aforementioned parties, the aforementioned promoters. If Lawrence Okoli is still contracted to Matchroom, all Matchroom's got to do is bid $300,000.
The minimum acceptable bid, which wouldn't be too hard for either Ben Shalom at Boxer to beat or Matt Rose at No Limit.
David Light's promoter, who I have no doubts would want to do the fight in Australia. That might be much to the chagrin of Lawrence Okoli, but that's the skinny. That's the way it could break down.
Eddie Hearn is adamant that Lawrence still owes them one more fight. And I don't think he's being adamant that Lawrence owes them one more fight because he wants to promote it so much as
Sky Sports and Boxer chose to interfere. So now what he's waiting for is some recompense due to their interference.
you approached a fighter while he was still under contract with us, and you offered him more money than we're paying him. That created problems.
That's really what started all of this. So as a result of that,
If you want him, it's going to cost you. If you want this fighter, this champion, who's still under contract with Matchroom, Matchroom may not have to ask you for the money, or ask Lawrence for that matter, because the fact of the matter is, he's still under contract. If he weren't, he would have been at liberty to migrate from Matchroom over to Boxer without consequence. But he still hasn't.
he still hasn't migrated from Matchroom over to Boxer, and it's likely because he's still under contract.
I think what Eddie Hearn is telling himself is that you guys approached my fighter while he was still under contract with me, and you created waves. So now that you've created these waves, if you want him, it's going to cost you some money, because we've already invested money in him. We got him to the title.
We're not leaving empty-handed from all of this. If you want him, it's going to cost you.